Hello and welcome back to the second part of the concept assignment 9. In this video, we'll be talking about the data manipulation language, specifically the insert command. So some key takeaways that you should get from this is that what is the SQL data manipulation language, how to use the insert into command structure. So the data manipulation language, that's that category of SQL language. It's used to insert, modify, or delete and retrieve data. Most of the stuff we've been doing is used to retrieve data. But when we want to insert data into our tables, we use the key command, insert into. If we want to modify something, we use the keyword update. If we want to delete something, we use the keyword delete. If we want to retrieve something or do a query, the keyword is select. So in order to put our data into the tables, we use the keyword insert into. And the structure of that command is insert into. Notice the main commands are all capitalized. Then we need to specify the table. Then we need to use the keyword values. And then open parentheses, and then we have our values separated by a comma. The values need to go in the same order in which the fields are created. For example, let's say we created a table and the first two fields are first name and last name. Then the data or the values we specify here has to be first name, then last name. If we're not inserting into a particular field, let's say we don't have any data to go into that field, then we need to still specify another comma indicating there's no data to go into that field. So with one statement, one line here, then we populate one record or row of data into that table. Hopefully you're getting this. You have to specify the values in the correct order in which the fields are in the table and in the way you created it. So again, that's very important that you understand what that table structure is and what the layout is going to be. So in this image here, you can see this is all the data that we want to put into all those tables that we created. And so the commands then are insert into, the value or the table name, vendor, keyword values, and notice that if it's in a text or character or variable character data type, we need to enclose that in single quotes. And then the end of our statement ends with a semicolon. Also remember, access makes this kind of difficult. We can only do one statement at a time. So here are all the statements that we're going to need to use in order to run that. So if we switch back over to our Access database, you can see here's the last set of commands that I ran to create this sold via table right here. So what we'll need to do is delete that. I'll press the delete command. Now, if you save this database from the last video, you would need to get back in here in terms of you'd probably be at the home, you wouldn't have any query, it'd look like this. So to get back to that view, you'd go to create, query design, you close that, go to SQL view, and you would delete that select. So now you're ready to enter those commands. So you would type that in, then you're ready to run it. And you'll click yes. And this went into vendor. So if we were to open up vendor, you would see that it has that data in there now. Hit close. We need to do delete this and start the next command. So we would see that and go to design view, and that's the second command to enter this record or row of data inside the vendor table. Run it. Hit yes. So you're going to need to do that for each of the remaining statements that's in that handout. My suggestion would be is you could probably just type in the new table that you want to do and then delete the rest of this and start doing the next one is category. If you don't spell it correct, you'll get an error. And we know that we want to have CP there. And we know we want to have camping there, the single quote, and then we can run it. And so you would just continue doing that for the rest of the commands. I'm not going to show you how to do that each time. What I will do is we'll go back through here and see if there's anything that's unique or something else I need to explain. So the category one looks fine. Notice that in the product table we have a value, a numeric value here of 100. So that doesn't need quotes. And so make sure you're not putting any quotes around your numbers. Nothing else has changed here. Notice because we made this character, these are numeric characters, and so they can't be manipulated like regular numbers, but they're just text characters. So they have to have a quote here for this store table. Nothing different there. So yes, just run all this and that will get all the data into your tables. So let's go ahead and do that. And when I finish, I'll come back and start this video to finish the last part. Okay, I'm back. I ran all those commands. I also went through each of my tables and checked to make sure that the number of records there was the same as the number of records in our example. Now they may not be in the same order, but there will be the exact same number of records. And I'll know they're not duplicates because if I have a primary key, I can't have duplicates. One last thing that I wanted to talk about, when you look at this listing or image of different tables, that field names and so on, one thing you need to keep in mind, and what usually analysts will do, is they will underscore or underline the field that acts as the primary key inside of the table. So if you go back and check your updates or insert intos, you'll notice that these primary keys are the same as the ones that are underlined here. Notice in this sold via that it's using product ID and TID as the primary key. So that's a concatenated key that's using at least two fields to represent the primary key. So if we go back and look at sold via, when we created the structure, you'll see that it has two keys there. So if I open that up again, you'll see that with using the create table command, I've listed two field names here, and they're separated by a comma for that primary key. All right, so we're now ready to go on to the last part of this video series for concept assignment 9. So we've finished the SQL data manipulation language of doing the insert into. Again, this should be what the data looks like in each of the tables, in case you haven't finished it up. What we want to do now is use a select command, and this is how we query the database. So remember, the database is a group of related tables, so that's what we just created. So using the select command, we can retrieve data from that database. It's probably the most often used command, and you use it with the from command. So the way it's used is you say select, then you specify the columns or field names separated by a comma, and then you say from, and then you specify the table. When you use multiple tables, you qualify the field names here by saying table.fieldname, comma, table.fieldname, comma, and so on. So it knows which table to pull that particular field name or column name from. So let's do this first query. So retrieve, so you might get a request from somebody that says, retrieve the entire contents of the relation product. So you could say select, and you could do an asterisk that represents everything, or you could say every field name that's in that particular table. Notice you don't need any comma after the last one. From product, semicolon. So let's go ahead and do that one. And I'm going to close everything down. I'm not going to save anything to the query one at this time. So we've got that. So I want to go back to my query design, close that. My view is going to be SQL. It's this one. I don't want that. And then I'm going to type in my commands. So it would look something like keyword select, then all of my fields from product, semicolon. I'm ready to run that. That gives me my output. That makes it matches the same output that I have in my instruction sheet. And now I'm ready to do an alternative way of doing that, and that's query 1A. So right now I need to save this query that I just ran, and I'm going to save that as query 1. Okay, I'm going to go back to my SQL view. Instead of saying select all of that, I'm going to say asterisk from product. Remember, that is this query statement, SQL statement, and the result should be the same. So running the asterisk, or using the asterisk here, represents all of the column names or field names out of this particular table. So if I go back to here and I run this, and this time I'm going to save it, except I just overwrote my query 1 example. So I need to do a save as in order to save it under a different name. I'm going to have to go back and correct that. Hold on one second. So I'm going to run this again. I'm going to save that. I'm going to close this. I'm going to do another query design. And I'm going to close that. Go to SQL view. Notice this time it says query 2. And I'm going to put in the other commands. And then I'll run that. And I'll need to do a save as. Or just, instead of doing query 2, we're going to name this query 1A, and that's what the instructions are asking you to do. And so that retrieved the same results as the other one using all the field names. So using the asterisk, which represents all field names now, or column names, gets us that. So query 2 says retrieve the entire contents of the relation product and show the columns in the following order. So you do not have to specify the same order in which the field names or column names are created. And you do not have to use all the field names that are in this product table. You can just pull the ones that you want. So I'm ready to run that. So it's in a different order now. And it's not the same information. And I'll need to save this as query 2. Notice I did query 1A down here. And did I overwrite 1A? I think so. So what I'm going to have to do is, I think what I'm going to do here, this seems rather tedious. I'm going to have to go back and correct this again, and then rewrite this query 1A, and then do query 2 again. So if I go back to SQL view, that's not query 1A. This should be query 1A. I'll run it. I need to save it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look and see if save as is part of this quick access toolbar. I'm going to do more commands and add the save as. Save as, I'm going to add that. See if that'll save me some time. I'm going to move this below the ribbon so it's there. So here's the save as command. So now if I use my commands from before for query 2, get back to the view, SQL view, and I'll change that. So there's no product ID there. We'll run it. Now this is the query I'd like to save as query 2, so I'm going to hit this save as. We're going to make it a query. We're not going to do it as a copy of. We're going to call that 2. And hopefully that'll save us some time in terms of having to start over each query. Notice the different queries we have here. So that's how that one's done. That gives us the result. Looks good. Query 3 says, for the relation product, show the columns product ID and product price. So here we're just doing 2 columns and the from the table product. So we should get something like that. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that one. So I click on the view, go to SQL view, change the command, go ahead and run it, and that works great. I need to save this as, this becomes query 3. And we see that it's there. So this is what I'll be checking when you turn in your assignment. So the last thing that we want to do is show you how you can get derived or calculated columns in your output using the select command. So we would say select, and then you would specify the columns that you want, the field names, and then you could also say the expression that you want. So for our example, it says for the relation product, that's the table, show the columns product ID and product price, and then we are calculating product price times 1.1, so that's a calculated column. Our output will be like the following. So this is why you don't save calculated values within your database. You can create them on the fly when you're doing a select command. So let's go ahead and do that one. So I've got that typed in. I'm ready to run it. And that gives our output. Notice it says expression 1002 here. So that was a default output. So if I go back to my SQL view, then it doesn't show what the column name is going to be. So I was trying to get it to look the same way as your output on this screen here. Notice it's capital product ID, capital product price. These are not the same spellings as way they were created in the database structure. So you're not going to get the same output. In order to get a column label at the top that's different, in SQL you're going to use a keyword called as. So if you remember earlier, I said sometimes you have to qualify the field name or column name. This is how that's done. Product ID, product price. And then I did the calculation here, product price in brackets times 1.1. And then I use the actual keyword as, and then how I want the column heading to be displayed. If I run that, you'll see that's what I got right here. Now I noticed that in access, if I put a period here, 1.1, it gave me an error. So if I go back to SQL view and I do the 1.1 here, and I hit run, it's not that it's too long of an output, it's because it doesn't like this period as a special character within its SQL statement. And so I can't make it look the way it's done there. So you may have to do something else. But I wanted to show you how that is done. So we could do one, maybe _1, and we could hit run, and that way it worked that time. So we're going to need to save this query as query 3A. And that, if you do all of that and submit this database to the link I provide you in the assignment area, the weekly assignment area, that'll get you all the points for this assignment. And that ends everything I wanted to talk about this week for concept assignment 9.